Welcome to the Blue Mouse Knits. My name's Emily, and today I'm going to teach you how to knit these really fun and beautiful boot cuffs. This is a great project to kind of learn some more knitting skills without it being too complicated. I would recommend this for advanced beginner knitters. So if you know how to cast on and bind off and work a knit stitch and a purl stitch, I think you can knit these cuffs. There's some cable knitting involved and some picking up of stitches, but I will walk you through every step of that process. You will need a set of US 8 5mm needles or whatever size you get to match gauge, and then you'll need one set that is 2 sizes smaller or 1mm smaller than what you match gauge with, and you can work this with straight or circular needles. And for one pair I used about 105 yards of worsted weight yarn, which is also called medium number 4. This will vary slightly depending on how close to gauge you are and the size that you knit, because the sizing is customizable. You can make this to be really any size that you want if you want to wear it closer to your ankle or further up your leg. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's get started. Begin by casting on 21 stitches with your gauge needle. So your setup row is just to purl across. So go ahead and turn your work and purl across. And now we have a 14 row repeat. So rows 1 and 2 are really the staple of your boot cuff. We will be doing the occasional cable, but for the most part, you're just going to be working kind of a knit your knits, purl your purls. So row 1, you're going to knit 1, purl 2, knit 6, yarn to the front, purl 3, knit 6 again, and end with a purl 2, knit 1. Turn your work. And now we're just going to kind of keep in time with that. So knit your knits and purl your purls. And now we're going to work the first of our 2 cable rows. So for row 3, work a knit 1, purl 2, knit 2. And now we come to our cable section. I have a couple cable needle options. Either of these will work. I will show you on the next one how to do it without. So a cable for front. The number always indicates the total amount of stitches. So we're going to put half of those stitches in the front. As if you're going to purl, just slip them from left to right onto our cable needle and just hold it in the front. And then our yarn is still in the back, and we're just going to kind of, as if nothing happened, we're just going to knit 2. Just try and kind of ignore the bulky cable needle. So if your cable needle is about the same size as your knitting needles, you can just slide them to the tip and knit off of them. But I like to slide them back onto my left-hand needle. So without twisting them, I just slip them individually back and knit 2. And it gives us a left-leaning cable. And now you're just going to purl 3, knit 2. And now we're going to do the same thing, so cable for front. So if you have this kind of needle, just go into the first 2 stitches on your left-hand needle as if to purl, like this. Just slip into the cable needle and hold in front. This one's nice because it creates a lot less bulk in the front of your work. Now we're just going to ignore those and knit the next 2. And now we need to slip them back to our left-hand needle. So then I knit those 2, followed by a purl 2, knit 1. And then for rows 4 through 8, all of your wrong side rows, you're going to repeat row 2. Row 5, which is the right side row, you're going to repeat row 1. And row 7, you're going to repeat row 3. So you're going to work your cable row again. So I will quickly show you how to work a repeat of row 3, this time not using a cable needle. So essentially I just rearrange my stitches without using a cable needle. So we want these first 2 stitches here to be in the front. So if you take a look at your 4 stitches on your left hand needle, I'm going to take my right hand needle into the back loops of the 3rd and 4th stitch in that sequence, like this. And now I'm going to pinch those 4 stitches and pull my left hand needle out. And now quickly scoop up those 2 stitches. So now I slip those 2 stitches from my right hand needle back to my left hand needle without twisting them. Now my stitches are perfectly aligned and I can just knit those 4 across. I'll show that to you quickly one more time. So just into the 3rd and 4th stitch from the back, slide those 4 off, and I like to pinch the first 2 and place them back onto my left hand needle. And then without twisting them, place those 2 stitches from your right hand needle back onto your left, and now simply knit those 4. So go ahead and work those rows until you've reached row 9, and I will meet you back here for row 9 to do the other kind of cable. Work a knit 1, then a purl 2. And now we're going to do a cable for back. So you're going to go ahead and place your stitches from left to right onto your cable needle. So slipping them as if to purl. And now you want to hold them in the back of your work. You want to make sure that your yarn is out of the way and is not underneath the needle. And now you're going to pretend that that's not there and just knit 2. Go ahead and bring the yarn to the front of the work. And now we're going to place those 2 stitches back onto our needle. With your cable needle untwisted, you're going to kind of slip them back to your left hand needle. So slip them back without twisting them. Make sure that your yarn is still attached to your right hand needle and is not in between those slip stitches. And then knit 2, purl 3. And now we're going to work a cable for back again. So this time I'm going to show you with a different needle. So I'm going to slip those 2 stitches, as if to purl, keep my yarn out of the way, and hold that needle in the back. Make sure that your yarn is above the cable needle. Knit 2. And then just for simplicity, go ahead and bring the yarn to the front of the work. And then I'm going to slip those back to my left hand needle. So slip them without twisting them. And then bring your yarn in between the needles to the back and knit 2. And then to finish the row, work a knit 2, purl 2, knit 1. And then for rows 10 through 14, all of your wrong side rows will be a repeat of row 2, row 11 will be a repeat of row 1, and row 13 will be a repeat of row 9. I will quickly show you how to work row 9, but without a cable needle this time. You're going to pick up the 3rd and 4th stitch from the front. So take your right hand needle into the front loops of your 3rd and 4th stitch. And now we're going to slide all 4 stitches off your left hand needle. You want to pinch the first 2 don't slide anywhere. And you can kind of see that they're right here. I just slip them back onto my left hand needle. And then I slip those 2 stitches back to my left hand needle without twisting them. And then you knit 4. You're going to be working with the first 4 stitches on your left hand needle. So go into the front loops of the 3rd and 4th stitch with your right needle from right to left and slip all 4 off while pinching so the first 2 stitches don't get pulled out. And then just kind of slip them back onto your left hand needle. Then slip those other 2 stitches back to your left hand needle and knit 4. And then you're going to repeat rows 1 through 14 as many times as you need until you can wrap the boot cuff around your ankle or your calf, wherever you want to wear it. You don't have to end with a full repeat of 14 rows. I would just say that wherever you end, you probably want your last 2 rows to be plain repeats of rows 1 and 2. If your last 2 rows look like they're going to be a cable row, just skip the cable row and work 2 normal rows instead. I worked 5 repeats. And then you're going to work a standard knit bind off. I'm not going to walk you through that, but if you need a refresher, you can find my video on that here. Now it's time to work the ribbed hem. So I've already done one of them, but they're identical. Something that might be helpful is to steam the edge that you're picking up from. So we're picking up from the long edge, not the bind off or cast on edges. I kind of steamed the edge. It's not perfectly flat, but the ribbing will even that out. I wanted it to kind of uncurl a little bit to make this process easier. But you're going to want to use your rib needles, which should be about 2 sizes smaller than your gauge needle. So you take your yarn and I wrap it around the middle finger on my right hand because I'm a continental knitter. This is purely to give tension. And now with the right side facing up, we're going to pick up along this long edge, and you're going to pick up a knit at a rate of 2/3. So you pick up 2, then skip the 3rd. So try and find the corner as best you can. So I put my needle through it, and now I'm going to pick up a knit. So I yarn over, and now I'm going to pull that yarn over through that hole, or you can think of it as pulling these 2 edge loops over that yarn over and off. Pull the edge stitch over that yarn over and off. Again, I have a way more in-depth video if this is not clicking for you, but you pull the edge stitch away and you see holes. So we're going to go into the next hole from front to back, from right side to wrong side if that's easier. Yarn over. And then again, you can either pull that yarn over through that hole or think of it as pulling the edge stitch over that yarn over and off. Slide down to the edge, but don't let this fall off. Pinch that edge stitch and pull it over and off, and then wiggle around to kind of readjust. And now if we look at the edge, we've got more holes, and we're picking up at a 2/3 rate. So pick up 2, skip the 3rd. We've picked up 2. This hole right here would be our 3rd, but we're going to skip it and go to the one after it. Yarn over, and I kind of use the tension with my left hand to pull that through the hole, and then wiggle to readjust. Wiggle your fingers around to find that next hole next to your edge stitch. Yarn over, and then use that tension to kind of keep it on your needle while you pull it through. Then wiggle to readjust. After a few, you can release your tension yarn and you have started to pick up stitches. This can also be done with a crochet hook. So the process is very similar. We've picked up another 2, so we're going to skip the 3rd here and go to the one after it. So stick your crochet hook in that hole, which separates your edge stitch from the rest of your work. Yarn over that crochet hook and then pull that through that hole. And then without twisting it, you pull out that loop and slide it on your knitting needle. Then you find the next hole, which is this one right here, go into it, yarn over, pull that through, open up that stitch, and place it onto your needle without twisting it. So those are the 2 ways that you can do it, but you're going to pick up 2 and then skip the 3rd. So I picked up 2, I'm going to skip the 3rd, which would be right here, and go to the one after it, and you just do that all the way down. Depending on how long you knit yours, you will get a different amount of stitches. I suggest ending up with an odd number. You can always decrease one along the way if you have an even number. And then once you get towards the end, you can just kind of do your best. So I have about 2 holes left. I've just picked up 2. I'm going to skip this one and go into the final one to pick it up. And there you have it. That's an odd number, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my work. I ended up with a total of 43 stitches, and now I'm going to work in 1x1 rib. So turn your work, and our setup row is a purl 1, knit 1, repeat until you have 1 stitch left. So go ahead and work a purl 1, and then a knit 1, and then a purl 1. And you're just repeating this all the way across. This kind of determines how tall your cuff is. So you've got your width here of your main pattern and then your cuff. And I did about 1 inch or just over 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters of rib on this side. And that was 7 total rows. So 1 setup row and then 3 repeats of rows 1 and 2. And then I did a tubular bind off, but you can do any bind off that you prefer. I have just finished a 1x1 rib section, and now I want to do a tubular bind off worked flat. I'm going to measure my tail 3 to 4 times the width or the length of my bind off. And I always like to be a little generous, and then thread that through a yarn needle. And we're going to go into the first stitch as if to purl. So go into the front loop of it from right to left. Pull the yarn through. So for step 2, we need to go into the next purl stitch, but as if to knit from behind. You can do it in 1 motion or 2. I'll show you first in 2 motions. So go in between the first 2 stitches like this. You're not catching anything. You're just going in between, pull your yarn through, and now going knitwise into the second stitch, which is a purl stitch. So you're just going into the front loop of it, knitwise, and pull through. After the setup, we work it in pairs. So for your knits, you knit off the first knit stitch and purl on the next knit stitch. And for your purls, you're going to purl off the first purl stitch and knit on the next purl stitch. We're working with knit stitches first. So I knit off the first stitch to go into it as if to knit, pull through a little bit, and then you can slide that stitch off and continue pulling through. And now I look at my second stitch, which is a knit, and I need to go into it purlwise. So go into the knit stitch purlwise. And now we're going to be working with our purl stitches. So we're going to be working with the first stitch on our needle, which is a purl stitch, and the third one, which is a purl stitch. So go into the first stitch on your needle as if to purl from right to left. We're going to purl off. So start to pull through, and you can slide that stitch off and continue pulling the yarn through. From back to front, we need to go in between your first 2 stitches. You're not catching anything. Pull through. And then we need to go into that purl stitch as if to knit. Pull through. When you have a knit on the first stitch, you're going to knit off and then purl on. So knit off, we go into the stitch as if to knit, and if it says to go off, you slide that stitch off. Now we need to purl on, so go into the next knit stitch from right to left as if to purl it, but pull through. Now we're done with our pair of knit stitches, and now we work our purl stitches. Our first stitch is a purl, we go into it as if to purl and purl off. Pull through and slide off. And now our next purl stitch, which is the second one here, we're going to knit on. So another way you can do this is take your needle in between your first two stitches, and then you just kind of have to turn the needle and catch the front loop of that purl stitch. So this one's a little bit harder. You can pull the needle all the way through and do it if you find that easier, but you can kind of just turn the needle and catch the front loop of it and pull through. So that's all in one motion, but I showed you earlier how to do it in two motions. And that's the repeat. You knit off, purl on your knits, you purl off, knit on your purls. We're on a knit, we knit off, so pull the yarn through and slide off. Doesn't matter at what stage you pull that off, as long as the yarn's through. Then we purl on the next one. So we go into the front loop of that next knit stitch as if to purl and pull through. We purl on, so we leave the stitch on the needle. And then for our purls, we're going to purl off, knit on. So into the first stitch from right to left, and we're going to purl off. So you can start to pull through, and then you can slide that off. Now we need to knit on. So go in between those two stitches, like this, not catching anything. Again, you can do this in two motions or one. This is two motions. Pull to the front and then go into the second stitch as if to knit. Pull through. I'll show you one other way that you can do your second purl stitch. So go in between those two stitches, pull just the needle through, then turn around and go into that second stitch as if to knit, and then pull. It does tug your yarn a little bit. If you've got flimsy yarn, you might want to just do it slowly and just repeat that all the way across. Here I ended with a purl one, knit one. So I'm going to purl off the next stitch and knit off the final stitch. So you just kind of work those stitches off the way that they were for the rest of the section. When you finish your bind off, you want to leave a tail that's about 3 times the width of your boot cuff or the height of your boot cuff, and then repeat on the other side. And then once you've done that, I will show you how to sew your edges together to complete the cuff. I'm going to show you how to do this with a contrasting color, but you can just do this with any of the bind off tails or a fresh tail of the same yarn. We want the right sides facing out, but I want them to kind of join. So I'm going to fold this over so that my right sides are kind of lined up like this. I'm going to take a removable stitch marker and just kind of pin in the middle so that they stay closed. So thread your yarn through a yarn needle. We're going to do kind of a half mattress seam, half shoulder seam. So we're going to seam side edges here for your ribbing and then bind off edges here. This might be easier if you look at it vertically. So I go over to the other side and you want to just kind of find the corner. It doesn't have to be perfectly exact. Just find the corner of that other side and pull through. You won't have as many tails down here because yours will be the bind off tail. But now we go back over to the left side and we want to kind of pull the edge stitch away, and you get these like horizontal bars. You're going to go underneath 2 of those as close to the edge as you can find. So they should be kind of clumped together like this. Go underneath 2. And now go over to the other side and do the same thing. Kind of pull that edge stitch away and go into 2 horizontal bars. They should be kind of paired up together. Just go underneath them and pull through. Go to the other side. So we've just come out of here. So we go back into that hole where our yarn's coming out of and find the next 2 horizontal bars. Then go back to the other side. Wiggle around and find the next 2 horizontal bars. So go back in where your yarn came out of and pick up those 2 bars. Go back into the hole you came from and then pick up the next 2. Back to the other side, go back into the hole and pick up 2, and you just keep doing that. And then we kind of get to our bind off edges that we need to join. So I'm going to pull on this tail to close up that seam. It may scrunch up, so you just pull the edges away from each other to unscrunch it. And now we're going to rotate so that we are looking at our bind off edges. Now there's a quote-unquote proper way to do this, and then there's a faster way to do it. I have video tutorials on how to do both ways, but for simplicity, I'm just going to show you the simple way. Find close as a knit stitch as you can to your seam. This is mine right here. You can kind of see that it looks like a V. I have my bind off edge. Just below it there's a V, so I'm going from right to left. And then we go to the top and do the same thing, where I find the first V below my bind off edge, which is about this one right here. Looks like a V. Pull through. Go down to where your yarn's coming out of. Pick up both legs of that next V. Go up to the top, find where your yarn is coming out of. Pick up the next stitch. Looks like a V. Go down to the bottom, back into the hole where your yarn's coming out of. Pick up a V, pull through. And you're just going to do this all the way across your bind off edge until you reach the other side where your ribbing is. Okay, once you've worked maybe about half of your cable section, you can go ahead and pull on that yarn to close up that seam. And if it gets kind of scrunched up, you just pull the sides apart like that. And this is how your seam is looking. I've done the next half. I'm going to close it. Again, if it bunches up, you just pull your sides away. Now we're on the other side of our ribbing. We're going to return to working a mattress stitch so you can rotate your project. And whichever side your yarn is coming out of, you go to the opposite. So mine's on the right, I'm going to go to the left. You want to just kind of pull away the edge stitch from the rest until you find 2 bars. So here's 2 bars right here. They should be kind of clumped together. Go to the other side and do the same thing. And then go back to the opposite side. Go back into the hole where you came from, pull through. Go back to the other side, go back into the hole you came from, pull through. Yours may start to get a tiny bit wonky if you're just trying to match up the ends. If this side was a lot shorter, I would only go into half a bar instead of a full one on the short side, and a full bar, if not 3 bars, on the left side. So you just want to kind of even it out. You can fudge things if you get a little bit off. It does not need to be perfect. And then you just keep going until you get as close to the edge as you can. So I'm about there. I'm just going to go straight up through one of those bind off stitches. Pull through. Go back to the other side and do kind of the same thing. Straight up through. And then you can pull to close. And again, if your cinches, just pull it apart. But there you have it. That is how you sew your boot cuff together. This is what my seam looks like. It's absolutely not perfect, especially it was a little bit hard to see on the ribbing, but at a glance, it looks great. And the front side looks even better. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, it would mean a lot if you would give this video a like and maybe check out some of my others. I have loads of tutorials. So if you're ever in need of knitting help, please remember to come back to the Blue Mouse Knits.